got the polished exoskeleton. Every game that I'm in, I win. All your best efforts are an imitation.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fan Battle Cast, where we talk about the death battle ideas that some people were really passionate about and paid a lot of money for. With me today, well, first, who is me? I am your host as usual. I am Santi Sharm. And with me today, the pitcher of this matchup, we have Riddles. Say hi.
Hi, I'm the guy who's really passionate about this matchup and had a lot of money to burn. I didn't really, but I was really responsible at that time.
And debating him today, we have I Am the Table. You might know him from a previous pitch of Oberon versus Akechi. Say hi.
Yeah. Hello. Hello, everybody.
And enough of you. And with
Dang.
I guess I'm very happy to have one of my close friends, Fate fan. We have Joey. Say hi.
Hi, I don't have an intro here, but Oberon should have won.
I'm very interested in
Not
having.
biased.
I'm very interested in having Joey here today because Joey is just as brain rotted as the rest of us, but not in a versus sense, in other senses. So he's kind of going to be like the control group. He's like the average death battle audience as opposed to like the versus brain rot fans. So it's very interesting that we decided to drop him into a versus debate with a lot of terminology. We really appreciate him coming out today.
I feel very out of place.
Yeah. To kind of explain it, before this whole thing, we were talking about scaling stuff, and Joey was like, what is an outer versal?
What is a multiversal?
Okay, to be fair, multiversal is the most confusing terminology I think of that wiki.
Mostly just because it's inconsistent.
It's just not intuitive.
Yeah. So yeah, this is going to be this will be a good test for our debaters, is how well they can explain the power of their characters without usually relying on certain conversational structures that they might be used to. So, yeah, this will be cool. So today we have a debate between Consul N from Xenoblade and Archer Emiya from Fate. And normally we would kind of jump into the 60 seconds for each here, but I'm going to guess a lot of people, and I'm kind of standing for this, is we may not know necessarily who these characters are. So could we just kind of get like a brief little introduction to like who these characters are, what their whole deal is, and why this is a good fight?
Yeah, sure.
Now, Riddles, you're the pitcher for this, so you're probably the best person to explain this part.
What are you talking about? Table will drop his sweet Xenoblade lore, that's all.
Yes, the Xenoblade lore. Okay, so there's this guy, John Xenoblade, and he made the Xenoblade.
And it was the most powerful blade you've ever seen.
I hate how accurate that is.
Yeah, first question. Is there a Xenoblade?
So, technically, yes. They never get called the Xenoblade, but there is, like, 3 weapons that you can that have the identifying factors of what you would consider a Xenoblade. Now then, but to actually describe this matchup onto, so, the thing with Archer and N is that they are both, like, alternate versions of the main characters. Noah for Xenoblade, Shiro Emiya for Fate. And it's the mood of, like, they're both versions who kind of best thing to describe is that they kind of just break under their own ideals and the pressure that they go onto.
Oh. So, Consul N is an alternate of Noah?
So the way the Xenoblade 3 works is that basically a creature calling it, a guy named Zed took control of the Xenoblade universe and put it into like an endless cycle loop. And a part of that endless cycle loop is, you know what, let's get a bunch of 10 to 20-year-olds to have permanent war.
Oh.
Yeah, and so it's like Noah was one of those soldiers for that war. Let's say just put up against another side, and it's like fight or die.
So in what way is he a counterpart to Noah?
So, he is Noah, is the main thing going through. It is like every time you die, you get reborn. In In's case, though, he is a version of Noah who, fell in love with an enemy soldier, from the other nation that he's supposed to fight, named a girl named Mio. They run off away from the conflict. Form a small village with other people who decide we don't want to do a war. And have a kid. However, when I say that it's like send a bunch of 10 to 20-year-olds to battle, I mean that as in they only have a lifespan of 10 years.
Oh.
And so they start from 10 and die at 20. And so it's like, Noah and Mio have a kid. And then, like, only a few years later, Mio dies because she's a bit older. And then a few years later after that, Noah dies because that's how it goes. And he just has to wish his kid the best of luck because as a natural born thing, he's not a part of the cycle.
So, So Noah was the father of a child, and then Noah died?
Yes.
So who is...
Okay.
Wait, I thought Noah was like the main protagonist of Xenoblade 3.
Yes, but because it's a cycle, he gets reborn.
So who's Consul
So-
N?
Noah.
So...
So eventually, the easiest way to describe is that events happen where the Noah that becomes Consul N gets brought back from the dead to do from like gets resurrected by his main enemy, and it's like, I want you to do a job. If you do it for me, you will get immortality with your wife, and you no longer have to be reborn in this stupid war.
Okay, so Noah's like a clone that constantly reincarnates, and the Noah we play as in Xenoblade 3 is the most recent reincarnation, and Consul N is a previous incarnation of Noah that was revived by some malevolent asshole.
Yeah, he was revived by Zed, which to summarize that's a quick thing, collective unconsciousness, that's a made manifestation who fears for the future.
So I'm hung up on something here.
Sure.
So people don't die when they're killed?
They do die, but then they get better.
I see.
It's basically a world where they just send a bunch of child soldiers to fight other child soldiers for 10 years, and then they kill them and bring them back to life.
Okay. I think that's a good baseline gist of Consul N. We can kind of get more into what they got going on in the debate part. And all three of you know this character more. I'm the odd one out because I'm not the Fate person. But what's Archer Emiya? What is an Archer and what is an Emiya? Because as far as I can tell, these are not exclusive terms for this character.
Do you want to explain, Table?
Hello?
Sorry, I had them muted because of background noise.
Gotcha. No worries. Anyway, so I guess we'll just start out with what exactly is an Emiya. So Shiro Emiya is the main character of Fate Stay Night. He is the guy who goes around. He's the main character of Fate Stay Night, and Archer Emiya is a potential future version of him. Essentially, from after the Holy Grail War, he goes on to try and become a hero. And to make a long story short, it turns out being a hero also involves killing a lot of people. And that kind of just disillusioned him on the idea of heroism. And at one point, he ended up becoming a heroic spirit by making contact with the world, with the main purpose being that he wanted to be summoned as a servant back in his original war to try and kill himself to save himself from his terrible future, basically.
Okay, so we've got... Because in Fate, as far as I understand it, there are servants who are essentially historical figures that get summoned to fight for the summoners.
Mm-hmm.
So did Shiro start as a summoner, but then eventually did enough cool stuff to become a servant?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the Holy Grail kind of exists in its own thing outside of time and space, so it can pull stuff from the future.
Oh, interesting. So he's a servant that came from the future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah, and then
And like, not all heroic spirits are necessarily historical figures. They could also be from, for example, in the same Holy Grail War, uh, false assassin is actually not a real historical figure. They're from a story, I believe.
Mm.
Satsuki
I could
Kojima.
have that slightly mixed up, but I believe he was when
Yeah,
he
with
explained it,
Kojiro,
and that he was from
basically,
a story.
the Kojiro who gets summoned is basically a guy who fulfilled the criteria of being Kojiro enough that when someone was trying to
That's what it
summon
was.
them, they just picked that guy like, yeah, you're close enough.
Yeah, they basically went in the world of fate. Satsuki Kojima was not a real person. He is the next best thing. They then walk
Interesting.
back on this by making that guy Satsuki Kojima later on.
Yes.
This is going off on a little tangent, but I do remember just that on some 3-hour essay on fake characters, there was like, I think like Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty were like introduced as servants, but there was like some weird stipulation because they weren't real, so it was able to work for a very specific reason or something.
So I like the thing with that because at one point it is like, so Holmes, are you actually a real person? And it's like, oh, I don't think that really matters, Andu. But it's a bit, but besides,
He really does just around the bush there.
Yeah, because Moriarty comes in
Yeah.
and says, "What the fuck are you on about, Holmes? We're real people."
Oh, so is it like implying that in this universe Sherlock and Moriarty might have just been real?
Yeah,
I think they imply that essentially Conan Doyle based the books off of their adventures or something like that.
yeah, it's the mood of like, so there's a bunch of stuff from like early Fate that just kind of gets quietly back on the way. And one of
Yeah.
them is the fact that it's like, yeah, this person didn't actually exist, so it goes on. Nowadays, it is like all myths are true to some extent, one way or another.
Mm.
It might not be like this specific version of the myth didn't happen, but the myth did happen.
So once a story goes in is 100 years old and is no longer protected by copyright, it becomes a myth and thus real in the Fate universe.
I think there's been some implications that Godzilla's a servant.
So what I'm hearing is in maybe 10, 20 years, we're going to get a Captain America servant.
Yeah, not impossible. I know they.
Fate
I
only
don't think
collabs
they've
with
given
itself.
him the name of it yet, but I know that Neil Armstrong is a servant in the extra games or the
Yeah.
Oh,
universe.
is he? I actually didn't know
Yes.
that.
You don't see his
Okay.
I
face,
really
but
need to
you
get
see
on
an
the extra
astronaut,
games
and
at
it
one
is him.
point.
You're not missing much skipping out on the Fate Extra anime.
Yeah.
I did watch the Fate Extra anime, but I just haven't played the games.
Well, sadly, he doesn't pop up in the games. It's just the anime where he pops up.
Wait, was
Someone-
he in the anime? How did I miss that? Gosh.
Someone in the chat was asking, and Riddles can answer this question, are we only using Archer from Stay Night and Hollow Ataraxia, or are we using FGO and Extra as well?
So, this is the wonderful thing. Archer pops up in Fate Extra, bad say, and it's technically an AU version. But, okay, to make a long answer short, yes, he should, bad say, I am allowing him to have FGO and Fate Extra stuff.
Oh, thank God.
I
Just
should've
like
just
all
told-
your
I
research is useless.
It's just like,
Yeah.
if it's Fate Stay Night, I think
Somewhat.
Archer gets, like, mountain level.
It really is tragic that I don't know too much about. I haven't played through the extra games because, from what I know, Fate Extra Emiya is the strongest version of himself, but I don't know why specifically.
It's because Extra is where a bunch of the stupid shit for Fate comes from.
Yeah, though, from what I've been reading, I think Grand Order might beat it out now, actually.
Well, okay, but to be fair, Fate Grand Order is like 5 times longer than The Lord of the Rings. That one's kind of expected at some point.
Oh, it's multiple times longer. I know that because,
man. I just
I
love
know-
the Lost Belt 6 script size. It's great.
yeah, Lost Belt 6 is as long
like
as the
7.
entire trilogy.
So now that we've established what an Emiya is, which is basically the character, more or less, what's an archer for my benefit? What is an archer? Because I hear there's like a million archers in this series.
Archer is just the class. In Fate, there's multiple classes, but in the original one, there was essentially 7 classes to kind of put the different servants into. They have all their different powers. Saber, it's the class for sword people. Lancers, the class for lancers. Archer is the class for the archers, which is why it makes so much sense that Emiya is a swordsman.
Okay.
Archer is more accurately the projectile class, and they have a lot of fun stretching the definition of projectile.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, Emiya doesn't even use arrows. He uses swords as arrows.
But he uses swords as arrows?
Yeah,
Yes.
one
Yeah.
ones you'll see a lot is he'll take an edited version of Cali's bow, and he'll stretch it out in his bow and use that as an arrow.
Yeah, he just...
All right.
Yeah, it's
That's
like, what's the
still
best...
This is interesting. Okay. I think we have enough background knowledge, and then we can actually get into the actual 60-second portion now. So which one of you would like to go first?
Can I do it because I paid the monies?
Sure.
You may. I will allow it. Let me just...
Thank you, Kenza. So, N, the Golden Consul of Mobius, one of the strongest characters of the Xenoblade series. Born from a version of... I'm going to continue. Born from a past version of Noah's wish to live a peaceful life his life. He was given a very simple task. Kill the top god of the Xenoblade universe. And that's it, because every other character in Xenoblade failed at doing that. And he has the power to do that. He is gifted with, one of the swords that can be called the Xenoblade, the Sword of the End. Filtered with one of the 3 core crystals that make up the, what I could best describe as the origin of the Xenoblade universe. Ends domineering power, and nigh unkillability, and divine made weapon should be more than enough to take down a simple archer from whatever the heck a Stay Knight is.
You got 10 more seconds.
Yeah, technically that's extra time.
He had like a little bit of before time too, so it's all good.
All right.
We're going with the defamation approach, I see.
Yes.
All right. Whenever you're ready, I'll start the thing.
All right. So, I'm ready to go. Okay. So, Archer, one of the weakest servants of the original Stay Night cast. He was once a young man who wanted to be a hero, but after making a contract with the world, his assignment was to kill as many people as possible at essentially the apex of the world's destruction. He did so, lost all his faith in heroism, and tried to create a paradox to erase himself from history. However, after being inspired by his younger self, he would go on to show up in more Fate projects as slightly less of an asshole. Despite being one of the weaker characters, he is also one of the most insanely powerful ones, able to just fire any noble phantasm he has ever seen. He has so many weapons that can just destroy N, and the biggest thing of all is the fact that he can even turn N's greatest weapon against himself. And yeah, that's it.
So we've got someone that can kill God versus someone that has... What's a noble phantasm?
A noble phantasm is essentially the big trump card of a servant. It can be anything from like their most powerful weapon or a special like tool they had that can do crazy stuff. For example, Saber's noble phantasm, or King Arthur's is Excalibur.
And
stuff like
Archer
that.
Emiya has access to all of them?
A lot of them, yes, because of his own noble phantasm, which I guess I could go over right now. We can.
Yeah,
go. Wants to start out.
I'm curious
So,
about this noble phantasm business.
Okay, so Archer's noble phantasm is unlimited blade works. In my thing that I sent you, Sante, I have show UBW.
Nameless.
Or it should be UBW nameless. So this is Archer's noble phantasm. It is a reality marble, which is essentially a pocket dimension that he creates when he activates his ability. And within this space, he has access to everything possible to recreate swords. And so basically, what he ends up doing in this realm is just creating hundreds of copies of various weapons that he has seen over his time as a hero, which he then fires as projectiles at his opponent.
Are these copies as strong as the genuine article?
No.
Oh.
It's
There's nothing
It's
that says
slightly
a
up in
fake
the air.
cannot
So
match
basically,
the original.
The way that it is described, you can show just UBW. There's another one there. So within this reality marble, all weapons are reduced by 1 rank. However, he does have the ability to reinforce them to increase their power, so it can kind of go to a similar-ish level. However, the big thing is that they keep all their abilities that weapons had before. So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a. Yeah, I think though with Arjo and a lot of stuff is that he's never bad say physically, almost never physically superior with stuff. He just has an endless bag of tricks.
Yes.
So when Archer Emiya is fighting someone, what does it like look like? Does he just like throw them like javelins, or do they like?
So typically he defaults to these 2 Chinese short swords, I believe.
Yeah, he has a couple of Chinese short swords whose names are.
Yeah. It's, well, what is the other one?
Let me see here.
But yeah, no, it's like they're relatively simple blades that.
And
Yeah.
Consul
and
Bakuya.
Yeah, and that's kind of where he goes for like melee range. They're not technically the strongest weapons in that they don't have a lot of crazy skills on them. The reason he uses them the most is that they're very cheap things for him to make, so he can just kind of shatter them on whatever he wants, and then just, oh, okay, new ones. Now I can just keep fighting, so he can just kind of endlessly regenerate them over and over.
Okay. But what does it look like when he launches a Noble Phantasm? Like, what does that look like?
For a Noble Phantasm, when he's so in UBW, it's basically just, okay, I make the swords appear in the sky, and swords now fly towards my enemy. Basically.
Like Gilgamesh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's why he's kind of the best character for fighting Gilgamesh in that specific scenario. He can more or less just match Gate of Babylon because he's just really good at making copies.
Okay, gotcha.
He does also have a bow, which can you show Khalidbolg? This kind of gets an idea of how he does the whole sword into an arrow thing. Yeah, basically he just kind of warps whatever sword he's using into an arrow and just fires it that way.
That's not what an arrow looks like.
It's close enough. That's basically what he does. It's like, I'll turn it into something that is close enough to an arrow.
He turns it into a screw.
No, that's
screw's kind of like an arrow.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and this is actually one of his better swords when it comes to firing, because the way Khalidbolg works is that when he fires it, it twists space and time around the target, allowing him to essentially just bypass barriers and higher dimensional space.
I feel like that would kill just about anything if the space is being warped around you.
Yeah, it was something where he was able to counteract the caster Medea when she was teleporting around. Basically, if he got her like in that range, it would have just kind of warped her along with the space that she was in.
Okay, so he's got his dual swords and he's got really crazy projectile swords. What does Consul N do to fight someone?
Okay, so Consul N does not have an unlimited amount of things. He mainly just has 1 blades on through. So I'm gonna send you a thing real quick, Shem, that is the image to give you the good idea on what it is.
Alright, I'll try to put this up ASAP, but keep talking.
But yeah, so Baozi-N's weapon's called the Sword of the End. It is basically made with parts of the machine that basically made the Xenoblade 3 universe. And also has like the core of one of the 3. The best way to describe it is one of the 3 processes of the supercomputer that kind of blew up the old universe.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah. So anyway, long story short, universe of Xenoblade kind of got started because a guy named Klaus, that's a made a machine that was supposed to help him save the world, and then he blew up the universe.
That sounds like the opposite of saving the world.
That sounds
Yeah,
counterproductive.
yeah, he kind of fucked up there. But yeah, so the main thing about that is that at its core is this thing called the Trinity processor, which had three things. One of those things you guys would know as Pyra/Mithra from good old Xenoblade 2, or my favorite game, Smash Bros.
Ah.
But for this thing, nope, is that this has a different core of what one of their brothers, so has divine power in with that. And this thing can just do the lovely simple thing of slashing through space, killing immortals.
It can slash through like anything?
Yeah, it's like it has been associated with like destroying shit that was considered indestructible. So in Xenoblade 3, it's like part of the reason why the wars continued on for people is that there were these things called flame clocks that are connected to people's lifespans. And so they needed to fill the clocks up by murdering other people to
As you
continue
do.
on. Yeah, and it's discovered that like Noah, whenever he grabs like that's at the sword of the end, he can destroy the seemingly indestructible stuff.
So, is Consul N like a boss fight?
Yes, and he does. So I do have skills both for like Noah and N that I can show off there. Show me if you can pull up. I think N skills would be most pertinent, but Noah skills would be also good.
You don't. The decision is not mine. Your word is law. What would you like put on screen?
Fair enough. Let's get N skills up there.
So, but my question with the boss fight thing is like, does Consul N just like kill you in one hit with this sword that can cut through space and the universe and God?
I'd say with most of these moves, I'd say no, don't believe so. Mainly helps that Noah also has this sword. Don't ask me how two of them popped up.
So is it like lore-wise, is it like the sword is strong enough to block itself and that's why you can have a boss fight with this guy?
Yeah.
Wait, I
Like,
thought Xenoblade was like a party JRPG, so there was like multiple characters.
We can assume everyone else dodged.
Wait, so like, can they take like chip damage, or is it like...
So, okay, better go on through. Ed does fight these guys go on through. Part of it is that... So, funny thing with Xenoblade 3. Most of the party members can basically become giant robots.
Okay.
With healing factors. So, N just does, whenever he fights them in their giant healing robot forms, dice them to pieces.
Oh. So, alright. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things, I guess.
It's kind of the mood of it's like, this is a weapon that should logically one-shot everything that you see. But it doesn't because otherwise there wouldn't be much of a game.
So I guess, like, the logic is, like, if Consul N hits one of your party members and does, like, half their life, they, like, got cut, but they, like, dodged in a way that it wasn't, like, a lethal wound or whatever.
Yeah.
I guess, okay.
Now everyone's just as equally strong as the sword.
That doesn't, okay.
Jane scaling 101, baby.
You see, N's,
Alright, I
you
guess
see
I'll vote
N's
for
act-
Xenoblade then.
N's actually a very shitty swordsman. He gets tired halfway through his swing and then gives up.
Is that... Oh, I thought
No.
you were being legit for a second.
Man, I picked this guy who sucks ass. Thank God he has an amazing sword.
Alright,
No,
so...
he's a...
What are Consul N's abilities?
So as you can kind of see here through, he has plenty of different stuff. Main things that he does like doing is like boosting his crit rate to hit harder. He can inflict bleed. Bleeds on opponents. Can launch them in the air and then just beat the shit out of them down. That's a main thing. Nope, that sadly did not properly. That's a pop. No, it was in a different thing. Is that he has a skill that's not up on here. That hasn't. It has a very important ability, which is it locks the abilities of one's blah blah blah. It locks the person who got hit with it out of the ability to use arts cards. Well, not arts cards, but arts abilities. Now then, if you could pull up the Archer Arts image, please.
Oh no.
Archer arts?
Yes.
I have Archer card.
Okay, that should be it. My bad. My mistake. So as you can see, Archer mainly uses an arts deck, about to say, and if he has them locked out, he will not be able to perform a Brave Chain, which drastically reduces his, his damage per turn.
Okay, hang on a second. Hang on. So, are we just assuming the power systems of Fate and Xenoblade are the same thing because they're both called arts?
So, to be real, I just wanted to make this really funny dumb joke.
Okay.
What will
I love that show. I love it.
So I'm glad that I got you to laugh at least. But
All
no,
right.
actually, the main thing that is that arts about the if you watch the Dunman versus Viking video, say cast, the skills that people use on them. So the main thing that this would probably that would do is lock about say Archer out of his skills. Which
would that work?
yeah, like skill seal is a thing that exists in FGO. And Archer can be affected by it. And I will note to this table, I did look up all the craft essences in case you want to bring it up. While there is debuff immunity, none of them last forever.
Keep asking me. Stop asking me if I want to bring stuff up. I don't know whether the stuff is important or not to bring up.
No, I was talking to the table.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Not everything's about you, Shanty.
Speaking of
Yeah,
everything
no.
being about me, Akira Yamaguchi wants it to be known that we can compare Emiya Archer to Saber and Caster that are able to clash Saber's sword multiple times using Rule Breaker. I have no idea why that's important or cool, but they wanted it to be put out there. That's cool. I guess we can just move on.
Well, no. I have some stuff here for the skill steal stuff. Like Riddle said, there are craft essences that can do block this, but also Emiya does have magic resistance, which allows him to increase his own debuff resistance rate by 12%, which I mean, it's not exactly the craziest thing, but still, he does have some innate ability to try and resist skill seal on his own.
Okay.
Which can be further boosted by the equip spells, basically.
Interesting. So are you two both just kind of agreeing that theoretically the skill sealing ability would probably work on Archer? At least, maybe Archer can resist it, but mechanically it works out that could stop Archer's abilities from working. Like, it's not like an incomparable, like, cross-franchise, like, that doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I'd say minimally.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I'll also bring up that one of the skills that is brought up for Archer to use in FGO that can be locked out is the skill that he's supposed to use to make the Noble Phantasm copies in the world.
Hmm.
So that would stop him from like using projection out in a normal area for it all. Like it might not work all the time, but like 12%. But like N does have multiple things to debuff, even if it is just bleed. So that will just even not on purpose, just drain the duration of like the craft essences that would apply debuff immunity. Because
Okay.
most of them are like it'll only last 3 turns, or you can block a debuff 3 times, and you can't stack the debuff craft essences together.
Okay.
Now, my question here, though, is what happens if Emiya dodges?
Well, you
Because
see,
he is very good at dodging, thanks to one of his skills, Eye of the Mind, which, Santa, can you show Mind's Eye? So this is a passive of his that is essentially gifted to him just from pure training and practice. Allows him to kind of just from glancing at his enemy, kind of in a sort of, it's not quite precog, but intuition, he can kind of tell what they're going to do. And as it says here, even if the chance to win is a 1% chance, he can find that chance and make it a reality.
That's pretty good.
that is very good. So anyway, I want to talk about that one time where a guy almost speed blitzed Archer anyway.
Okay?
For those
So
who might
even-
not know, what does the term speed blitz mean?
It basically means that the enemy moves so fast that your skills mean diddly dick.
You're just too fast to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Alright.
So, about to say, mine's up. I did have it showcased during that time when he was fighting against Kukulane the Lancer. Where it is basically noted that the main way that Archer was surviving was that he could not deal with like not knowing where Kukulane was going to attack, so he just left deliberate weak points in his defense, because at that point he would know that Kukulane was going to attack from there, and he could at least do something about it that way.
I mean, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. This is also back in Stay Night, which is back when everyone was slow as shit.
And what you talking about? We know that Kukulane's like, about to say, a guy who can move around at light speed. Shame that N can move faster than that.
So, I guess the pertinent question at this point is, if Archer can dodge Consul N or not, is how fast are these guys?
Hey, Table, I feel like that you're gonna have the bigger headache at the end of the day, so I want you to start.
Okay, well, this is gonna kind of go back to some of my stuff from my Akechi versus Oberon thing, but for going into FGO's stuff, we can pretty easily get these characters up to measurable speed. We had gotta look through my gotta look through my old stuff now, but one of the bigger feats was when one of the foreigner class servants was about to unleash her noble phantasm, which would have engulfed the entire Void Sea, which in Fate it's kind of an alternate dimension shenanigans kind of thing where all possibilities exist and all numbers, real and imaginary, also exist. So it's a infinitely large space, and this foreigner class servant was going to fill up the entire space instantaneously.
So
And there's some other feats in FGO that also kind of suggest kind of further go into just immeasurable speed stuff, but yeah.
that's pretty fast. That's
Yeah.
So typically when it comes to the immeasurable stuff, it's more for like specific abilities on through. Like when it comes to like actually the bodies themselves moving around, that does not lead to nearly as much goes on through. I'm sure, Table, you have heard about Saints Crafts not being able to handle being faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Sometimes not even Fate remembers that. Like, I remember back when the Saber versus Luke blog came out, they calced how fast Alexander the Great dodging Excalibur was back in Fate Zero when they were still trying to do the whole servants can't go light speed thing, and his dodge was calced at 7 times light speed.
Aqua
But yeah, it's kind of a
Alin
case-
X is also asking about the CCC BFR speed feat. I don't know what that is.
So,
oh yeah, you can.
so it's basically in CCC. It is about to say, remembering correctly, it's been a bit though, but at one point the player character server that you could have, which includes a version of Archer, it gets punted into another galaxy basically.
That's pretty good. It's
Not-
not,
and then he
not
comes back
quite
a few
as
minutes
good
later.
as infinite speed, but going to a different galaxy's cool.
Another case to argue for immeasurable is that in the Edmund Dantes event, Florence Nightingale, the nurse lady, was able to go toe-to-toe with Edmund despite him using his noble phantasm, which allows him to escape literally anything, including time and space, allowing him to go, to measurable speed. And if we really want to go to CCC stuff, yeah, another servant, BB, was able to process everything going on in the moon cell simultaneously, which the moon cell is also a infinitely large existence. So, yeah.
Still need to find that one scan that I remembered of, just like of them going, no, the moon cell's not infinite.
Yeah.
I remember
And then I
seeing
could
that
also-
like
yeah.
years ago, and I hate that I didn't save it.
Nah.
Ah.
And well, as it's also kind of relevant to my avatar up there. We also have Vortigern capable of devouring the entire planet within an hour, which is the layers of the planet are also infinite in nature. So, yeah, I know it sounds not as impressive to say, "Oh, you can eat all these infinities in an hour," but still, when you're devouring multiple infinities, it's kind of like, yeah,
So Fate generally has speed feats of characters consuming or affecting an entire infinite sized thing, whether it be a planet or a void sea or whatever. It's
yeah,
they
or space time.
when they're locking in, they got infinite speed.
Yeah,
So I guess the chat is asking the same question. What's gonna stop? What's Consul N gonna do when Archer sends a million infinite speed swords at Consul N? What are they gonna do?
So he's going to live, funnily enough, is the simple thing. Because N is a cockroach. Shem, can you please pull up Get Smited, Idiot?
Get smited,
So-
idiot.
So this is a scene that comes from the Xenoblade 3 DLC. Where basically after having a fight with the characters in there for it all, it is the fact of N gets taken off guard by by Alpha, who is top god of the Xenoblade universe.
Get smited?
Yeah. Should be it. And why am I forgetting the name of the stuff I named it?
Oh, this didn't load because it's a GIF. I'll try to. I'll see if I can grab it. I apologize.
That goes up there. So yeah, the main thing is just the fact of during that moment. Oh, there it is. So that is N getting disintegrated by God. And he comes back from this.
What do you mean comes back?
As in, it's like, he gets disintegrated by God. God fights the characters, the characters for the Xenoblade 3 DLC. And then during the middle of the fight, N comes in and helps them out fighting God.
Well, like from stage left, like we don't see how they come back. They're just like, I'm here again.
It is a mood of something with how N and his wife Consul M both have, is that it's indicated that they have stupid regeneration things, even by the standards of like Mobius and the other and their compatriots. Because it's so, a thing that's brought up is that I described how it's like you live 10 character from Xenoblade 3 is supposed to live 10 years and then they die.
Yeah.
So it's brought up by N that it's like, if you do that, your soul gets erased and you're not supposed to be it's like, if you live a natural lifespan, your soul kind of gets erased and you're no longer a part of the rebirth stuff onto. So the thing is that due to a bunch of stuff that I'm not going to be able to summarize in a thing of time, that happens to Consul M. But she ends up popping back up again later as a ghost.
Okay.
So the spirit can go on through for that, and those and even as a spirit, they are able to affect stuff. When N's boss Zed gets beaten and has a universal temper tantrum of just fuck you guys, I'm destroying this universe. Period. N and M both go in and and are able to stop him from destroying everything.
Okay. So the logic we're using for this is their body was completely disintegrated. They probably survived as a ghost, and their ghost was able to recreate their body.
Yeah, that's the most likely thing that could go on through, because during this point, N's boss Zed was kind of left in a mostly powerless state.
Hmm.
Yeah, so to summarize, I brought it before about why N was brought back to do a job, and that job was basically his boss Zed. It can be described as the false god of the Xenoblade 3 universe, and the villain for this is the actual god of the Xenoblade universe.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's like it's like the actual god was looking at the state of the Xenoblade 3 world and was like, I fucking hate this. I'm going to wipe it all out. And so it's like, so Zed gets into an alliance with Shulk and Rex, the MCs of Xenoblade 1 and 2, and I'm like, okay, let's stop God from destroying everything.
Hmm.
And they fail.
Well, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it's like it starts out with the three of them preparing to fight Alvis as he's called, and then when we come back to them, it's like Shulk's missing an arm, Rex is missing an eye, and Zed got sent to the timeout movie theater.
I hate the timeout movie theater.
It only plays one film.
What film was
Alright.
that?
For some reason, it was the story of Noah's life.
Oh dear.
Great for emotionally manipulating him, not much else.
So I guess the relevant question in this thing is, can you stab a ghost with a sword in Fate?
I mean,
they're kind of already ghosts, so.
yeah, yeah, they are spiritual beings, and that goes on through. It's why I brought up the thing of the reincarnation stuff goes on, because it's like that's supposed to already about to like wipe your soul out, so you don't have to go back in. And even then, we have an example of someone that should be comparable to N surviving that anyway.
So
I'm seeing your face, and I understand you are so.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around all this in a concise manner. We have, so in Xenoblade 3, the souls are just supposed to die after they live a full 100-year life.
10 years.
10-year life. And then but Consul end because they got a mission, they can their ghost and their spirit can keep going on past this time limit.
Well, from some of the stuff I read, it's partially due to his core, from what I understand.
Their core.
His core.
What core?
I was expecting you to say something here. He has that X thing on his chest.
Are they
It's his
like
core,
perfect
right?
cell? Do they have like a single like cell that is their core? Like was
No, I don't think that's supposed to be how that works.
Really? I went through a whole thing looking up like this whole thing about the argument of like a Mobius core, and I'm like, I thought there was going to be a whole thing.
Okay, so Mobius, other Mobius do have cores that are basically the fuck me lights of a boss fight. You stop it 3 times and you kill a Mobius. For N and M, it's a bit ambiguous because mostly those cores only pop up when they're in the big monster forms, and N and M never use those big monster forms.
Interesting.
But it's like, even if that does exist, I do feel like it probably would have gotten hit when he got disintegrated.
That is a good point. All right. Well, in that case, I'll have to try and go into some of my other arguments here for how we can potentially get around that.
Sorry,
sorry.
Yeah, nope. I was gonna bring up because you did bring up speed, and I do want to.
Oh yes.
So this is gonna be a familiar argument, Shanty.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So anyway, to make a quick summary of the Xenoblade worlds is that their universes are explicitly infinite and endless. This has been confirmed by people who, by like the gods of this world. A guy tried to do a scientific thing where he sent out a probe that went like a couple of trillion light years away.
Hmm.
And it's like, they told me they'd be on the ocean, but I was like, there'll be an end. I got the status report. It's still just ocean. I think they're right. It is just endless.
Hmm.
And we do have, of course, the multiple characters messing around with stuff on through. Technically, the entire plot of Xenoblade 3 took place in like 7 seconds.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Wait, what?
So the way Xenoblade 3 happens is that the universes of Xenoblade 1 and Xenoblade 2 were going to collide. They were like, that sounds like it would cause mass casualties. So they made like a computer system that would temporarily update them as thank you, Chanty. That would temporarily so it's an indestructible supercomputer that they would upload that would basically upload everything in each other's universe into. And then once that happened, and it's like they collided, and then they would eventually separate again. And then once they separate, they just have the computer go beep, boop, beep, and then just about to say, then just paste down, copy and paste everything from the data into the other universes again. But, so I brought up Zed. He's basically a computer glitch made from, like, humanity's fear of an uncertain future. And so that just led to him thinking, we should focus on the now, and this now is this one moment in time where these two universes are fused together. And so he just kept these universes, about to say, glued together for all that time.
So this is a speed feat.
Technically, it's like, hey, I shoved like a multi-millennia year forever war in battle against multiple gods into 7 seconds. And then, of course, there's also, if they're infinite, then, like, stuff like Alvis messing with it, Zed messing with it. Those can also be considered speed feats along the lines of messing with the void space.
Wait, how did we get to the 7 second? Like, so Zed's making it so the universes can't go away from each other.
Yeah,
right?
So basically, it's like he basically, like, makes a time slowdown / stop. In, like, this one supposed to be short moment where the universes are fused together.
So, I mean, that's cool, but that, to me, that doesn't necessarily imply, like, a speed thing, because, like, let's say, like if just because, like, a big thing is moving and I stop it from moving doesn't mean I necessarily scale, like, to its side. I'm trying to think, like, if a car was going downhill and I can, like, just grab and hold the car, that'd be, like, my strength is equal to the car, but that doesn't necessarily imply, like, a speed thing.
About to say, so it's a very esoteric thing, and it's just a funny little supporting argument I want to bring up. But, like, when I bring up that it, like, takes place in the 7 seconds on through for that, I mean, like, when the universes go back to normal, about to say, it does treat it like it's only those 7 seconds that passed on through.
Like, the
It's
universes go through each other in 7 seconds?
Yeah, it's like when they collide and fuse, it's like two. About to say, it's best to imagine like two balls bouncing off each other. For what's the intended effect supposed to be? So, like, they'll bounce off, then they'll go back, and then eventually, I think the 3 DLC implies that they'll combine together in a much more gentle way this time. But yes, it's much more easier to go into, like, Alvis manipulating an entire universe, doing like the recreation of it in Xenoblade 1, or like I said, Zed also just with his, because the universe of Xenoblade 3 is the size of, like, Xenoblade 1's and 2's universes.
Okay.
So, like, being the one who can create it, the one who can destroy it on through, and can also be given on through for that type of logic.
So
I said, it's
not
a
sure.
very abstract shit.
I don't think I fully grasped the full implications, but assuming you're a trustworthy individual to be believed, they are essentially affecting an infinitely sized realm, which would be a similar speed feat to the Fate characters affecting infinitely sized realms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So they're both like, these characters are like killing gods who can affect infinite stuff. So they must also be able to move at infinite speed. Sure.
Yeah,
I
I'd
can
say
take
that.
Alright.
Yeah, no, but it I think it might be easier to say, like, how the Zed speed thing's supposed to go is, imagine, like, in between a second, you just put the entire history of the universe in the middle of it.
That sounds like it'd be stressful to space-time.
It is.
Space-time can be resilient, so like that sometimes.
Like, I think it is a thing established that what Zed was doing was just going to lead to the annihilation of everything in the long run.
Alright then, so we've got... The infinite speed at this point isn't really a confusing thing, but it's just like, the way we get there sometimes can be a bit mind-warping.
That's power scaling, baby.
Alright, so we've got these two characters that can move at infinite speeds, and thus should be relative to each other. That's kind of where we're landing, or...
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think so.
That's fair enough.
Alright, so speed's not really going to be a factor in this. But if they're similar speeds, that would mean to me that the Archer Emiya dodging arguments hold water. So I guess Archer Emiya just wins.
Well, we do need to kind of get into the case of how exactly does he kill, and considering that N
Oh,
is
yeah,
like super
right.
immortal.
Right,
I was
the
about to
ghost
say it's
thing.
like I got up a guy who survived disintegrating and wife. It has a wife who survived, but they having her soul wiped out. And
Well,
he's
we're not
just
talking about their wife. We're talking about Consul and Riddles.
Well, listen, motherfucker. If Seaboat versus Kyle can have wife scaling, why can't this one?
Alright.
Damn it. Well, actually, no. That would be good for Emiya. He has, since he's Shiro, he has 3 wives.
Emiya, okay,
you-
okay. Shiro might have a wife. Emiya definitely does not have a wife. We know what his relationship status was.
Now, don't you start spreading lies. I've seen plenty of mangas that are totally legit where he was getting very intimate with his various wives.
Mangas, you say, huh?
Yes, very official ones.
That's it.
Yeah, definitely.
But
His
um,
latest girlfriend, timeline-wise, knows damn well otherwise.
Anyway, I do want to start getting into some of my argument about how exactly Archer can even kill N, considering that's kind of, even when I was looking this up, I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, how exactly does he kill this guy? Because the first thing I did was look up Versus Battle Wiki, and I just saw like a billion-page long thing of all of N's abilities, which was very overwhelming. But anyway, Sante, can you please put up Rule Breaker 1? So one of the nifty things that Emiya can project with his powers is this thing right here, Rule Breaker. It is a knife created by Caster Medea, not created, but owned by Caster Medea. And can you look up Rule Breaker 2? Now, the actual dagger is not strong at all. The actual crazy thing about it comes from its ability. It is the ultimate anti-magic noble phantasm that is able to destroy any magic or contract or any kind of life created out of magic and just kind of destroy it. Shiro is able to use this to separate, unless I'm misremembering something from like a decade ago, was able to separate. Well, for this sequence, probably a better argument actually is. But Medea was able to shatter the contract between Shiro and Saber and then take Saber as her own servant. And then later in another route, Shiro was able to free Sakura from the influence of the corrupted Holy Grail with it. So my argument here is that since, from what I have seen about how Noah became N, he more or less became N thanks to a deal he made with Zed. So I feel as though Rule Breaker would be able to just break this contract, thus N is no longer N. He's back to being Noah.
Okay, but counter argument. If that's how this worked, then why didn't Archer use it on himself to break his contract with the Counterforce?
He just really, really hated his younger self and wanted to kill him. He was at maximum self-loathing here.
Would the contract let him do that?
Yeah, it's like, so when Archer's summon just pops up, you can have people of the Counterforce with some forms of anatomy on through, like, even though he will be like, okay, now wipe out remember, Archer, no more survivors. Yes, Alia. It's like, he can still has its anatomy goes on through. He's not an unthinking machine doing all this, so we should be able to make it.
I feel like it's not a crazy statement to say, like, part of being under my control is you're not allowed to explicitly do something that would break the control. I say as someone with the least amount of context of all 4 of us.
I mean, but I've got a guy that goes on through. I know that, like, Saber ended up breaking out of her contract with it. Not with this knife, though.
If we're talking about one of the bad endings, I know she kind of was. There was a whole thing where the evil priest.
Kire?
Yeah, Kire was able to break the contract, kind of, to take Saber away in one of the bad endings, where Kire was just like, I actually don't want to do this. Goodbye, Saber. I'm gonna go and stop being a master now.
Hmm. So it
There are
seems
some ways to like break it in a way where you're okay with it, but the main thing with Rule Breaker is that it's kind of forcibly breaking something that you have.
this dagger does seem like a good win condition to me.
I will bring up as the person goes on through, this has been a thing that's been on my mind for a good while with it. But I'd say it is just the fact of eventually have to deal with the logic of, if Archer has this and he can affect something to that magnitude, the fuck is he doing with this convoluted self-termination scheme? Because it should be noted that it's like, Archer's not like dead set on killing his younger self. Hell, in one of the main story routes, he saves his younger self's life.
Someone in the comments is asking, couldn't Emiya just kill N in Ultimate Blade Works? And that should end him because Ultimate Blade Works is under his authority and he controls the area.
I'm not sure about that, just because. I mean, I guess technically, Unlimited Blade Works is a pocket dimension, but it's not like it's a dimension where just being in it like stops immortality. He has weapons that can stop immortality.
Is Consul N's immortality tied to the fused universe they're in?
That's the extent of how it goes is hard to say, really, because because the issue is the immortality stuff just kind of happens with minimal explanation. It's like, like M sacrificed himself, so this version of Mio could go on through. Anyway, here's M's ghost popping up through, and it's like Ed gets disintegrated. Ed 5 minutes later, hey guys, what I miss? They don't actually explain this, and it's annoying.
Interesting.
The greatest weapon of all power scalers, inconsistent writing.
So besides the Rule Breaker Destroyer of all marks, does Emiya have other options potential?
He does have a couple things. One weapon he can project, Harp, which is the weapon of Medusa. Not Medusa. Well, Medusa uses it in one thing, but basically, it's a weapon that can kill immortality. Basically, when it cuts you, it leaves a wound where you can't really heal from it, other than just waiting for it to naturally heal. But in the Babylon anime, Medusa uses it on Gorgon and basically just one-shots her with it, despite her being immortal. So obviously, this doesn't necessarily like deal with the soul part, but it does seem like a pretty good way of keeping N's physical body down.
Now, I do have a question about this. Is the blade on the inside of the crook or the outside of the crook?
Looks like it's on the inside.
That means
Also,
Archemy is gonna have a really hard time using it as a projectile if the blade's on like.
No, it's
the
okay.
inside
It's a
of the
sword.
crook.
It's a sword. He'll deal with it. And you
But
might
he
say,
throws things like they're ranged weapons for him. Is he
imagine-
allowed to just grab them and use them as a melee weapon? I feel like that's against the
he
rules.
actually is. He
Yeah,
does it in other
So-
Fate stuff. He doesn't CCC a lot.
All right,
Yeah,
fair
no,
enough.
he can use. Yeah, the stuff. Yeah, while he's an archer, he mainly just uses. He mainly likes using melee weapons.
Yeah. Also, the best part about this weapon here, apparently this does just count as a sword somehow. I don't know how.
It's a sword with a really long handle.
Yeah.
All right, that
But,
seems like it's got potential.
And then there is his ultimate thing. So, with Unlimited Blade Works, as I kind of went over it earlier, it allows him to project any weapon that he has seen up to the point that he launches his Noble Phantasm. So, can you please show sword?
How descriptive.
So, question: what exactly is N's weapon? So yeah,
it
that's
is a
probably the
sword.
best. Yep, and he is very good at making swords. And so the second he sees that, oh hey, free awesome immortal killing sword. Thanks for it.
Okay, so I will note that. So on average, using like your own enemy's weapons against them is a very cool strategy. It is not one that is practical for Emiya for multiple reasons.
All right.
Okay.
That's a so like we kind of brought up though that due to how like one of them is the wonkiness of verses when it comes to Fated, but on paper Emiya is always supposed to be at the relative physical disadvantage, and every time he does it, his weapon is always considered a bootleg. And then there's sometimes where depending on the abilities of the weapon, it can be considered a bootleg of a bootleg.
True, but with the power of strengthening it, you can at least get it to like a somewhat similar level. And even if the sword just breaks, nothing really stops him from just making the sword again, since it is a sword. So when it comes to projecting swords, he doesn't really have to deal with the issue of how long it takes. When he's projecting other things, like say a shield or a lance or whatever, it usually takes a little longer for it to just pop into existence because it's not a sword. But again, since the sword at the end is a sword, he can more or less just keep bringing it out over and over again. Or you can use it as a broken phantasm, which would basically just be turn it into a missile and just fire it at N.
That is, that's it. The mood of Archer is okay. Got a new sword in my collection. Now, how can I turn it into a projectile? And can I
Yeah.
use it to shoot myself?
And there was also a pretty good buff that the Emiyas got earlier in the year. Sante, can you show Broken Phantasm? So a neat thing about Unlimited Blade Works now is whenever he uses a Noble Phantasm as a Broken Phantasm, its effects are applied to every sword within Unlimited Blade Works. So if he creates Sword of the End as a Broken Phantasm, he fires it at N. Now every sword he fires has the immortal, killing, soul destruction, doohickey powers on Sword of the End. So now he's firing essentially hundreds of blades that all have the immortal killing effect.
That's pretty OP.
It is
Yes.
very OP. I gotta ask though, because it admittedly has been a while, but can Emiya just tell by a weapon's glance all of its attributes?
I mean,
Well,
from the way
because
it's described, it does seem like that is how it is, especially if it's a sword.
well,
The
that's
only
it.
issue he ever has is if it's a divine weapon, and from what I've looked into, the Sword of the End isn't divinely made.
So this is the point where we are going to argue the funny schematics, and also going to have to bring up what the hell a god in the Fate universe is.
Wait, why do these semantics matter right now?
Because I'm going to begin arguing that the Sword of the End should be considered a divine weapon.
What would that prove?
So the main thing is that it would, because it would mean that Emiya cannot be able to guess and to like glance at it and guess its effects well, and also Emiya in general does have. It depends on the author and stuff, but it is generally consistent that Emiya does have a harder time tracing something if it has like divinity involved with it.
Wait, why does divinity make it harder for him to like? Wait, is this for like his dodging ability, or is this for just his
No,
ability?
this is for how he creates the weapons. Essentially, in Unlimited Blade Works, all of the necessary materials that are needed to create a sword exist in there. It's just the issue of if it's a divine or essentially, would it be easy for him to just bring in, more or less? So it wouldn't necessarily naturally exist in Unlimited Blade Works. So again, it's somewhat shaky, but I would like to hear the argument here.
Okay, so I just want to point for an easy point of reference of how you can end up getting with stuff when it comes to Fate gods. Shanty, can you please pull up Fate Zeus?
Oh, brother.
So anyway,
Hi,
this
Zeus.
is Zeus.
In
And,
Fate?
yes, this is yes.
Yeah.
Zeus is a giant alien starship in Fate.
Cool.
So for all the funny mechanicalness that comes on with it, I bring him up because it is kind of a showing that divinity from Fate can come from machines.
Alright.
And meanwhile, okay, let's begin going into this process of N's bloody ass sword.
So is this all just to try to prove that Archer couldn't recreate Consul N's sword?
it's the case of it has a bunch of asterisks to it that makes me doubt that he would be able, that it would be a strategy that he would use for it, and b, even if he did it, it would be the most practical one.
All right.
So, but yeah, no. So you can get, in fact, get divinity from a machine, and I know it's been a bit, but to summarize with how the Sword of the Sword of the End can be made is basically from the progeny, from the item that birthed the universe, with a core, with a divine core, of one of the three, processes of the computer that led to the creation of this setting. And they do very often do get worshipped as gods, in the Fate world, or at least acknowledged to be divinity, with like Zanza and Mayneth, I think was her name in Xenoblade 1.
Yes, Melia. Yeah. Yes.
But yeah,
I did
so
do a little bit of research on this to try and figure that out too. But yeah, from what I've seen, they're just kind of the bird people.
oh no, those aren't Melia's No, I'm talking about so like in Xenoblade 1, the entire game takes place on two titans. Those are two gods. Zanza and Mayneth, I think, were their names.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it's like Alvis is the third god that's above them. And Alvis has siblings, and one of those siblings is the core of N's sword.
Okay.
So from what I read, which this could be incorrect just because this is just me going from the wiki, the Sword of the End was created by someone named Melia, who was a character from Xenoblade Chronicles 1, who is a High Entia, which is another, just one of the species that exist on the Xenoblade world. Which is part of why I would, if she's the one who created it, that would kind of lead me to thinking that it's not a divine weapon.
Well, it can't be Melia who did it, because the core came from the Xenoblade 2 world, which she's not a part of. Now, admittedly, what doesn't help is the fact that the events of the game imply that it's the Nopon who have the big hand of making weapons made out of that material. And the Nopon are fucking annoying to figure out for what their deal is.
I'd like to just say something about just this whole topic real quick.
Yeah.
This seems like an interesting lore discussion, but I feel like this sounds like it's going to take a lot of time and also isn't actually all that relevant to the debate. Because I feel like at the end of the day, what this is either going to prove or disprove that if Archer can recreate Consul and Sword or not. Which, like, that would be cool, but it sounds like that's going to be a debatable aspect whether or not he can or can't do it. But it's also not even the end-all be-all of the weapons that could potentially get past the regeneration. So I feel like we really don't need to belabor the point on this one.
That is fair. We can move on for it.
It's like, he might be able to make the sword, but it's like, if that's a finicky thing. He maybe, maybe not.
That is fair.
It's kind of just the case of he has multiple options that he can create, one of which is just creating, potentially, if you can do it, create the really strong sword that his enemy has, but he has other options as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about what Archer can do. He has a lot of cool swords, a lot of cool abilities. What's Consul N bringing to the fight besides being a sword fighter and coming back from being a ghost?
Yeah, no, but it's N is a relatively much more straightforward fighter with Anbu. He is just mainly a sword fighter at the end of the day.
Oh, okay. So, like,
Yeah,
what would Consul N's win condition be?
So I'd say that I don't think it's too much of an argument to say that the Sword of the End should definitely be able to affect, like, servants physically.
Okay.
But I do think, like, even the general thing of, like, spiritual things, since...
Based on how thoroughly you've described its ability to kill things, I don't see why it wouldn't be able to kill Archer.
Yeah, it is just... Yeah, N's thing is just, if he could deal with Archer's bullshit and get in close to the kill, he should be able to just do it, because servants do have healing factors, but it wouldn't be enough to, like, deal with, like, an obviously lethal wound. Archer gets cut in half, he's dead. If he get, let's say, brain damage, that's gonna fuck him up.
Does Consul N have a way of getting around what seems like Arch Emiya's really good ability to just dodge everything?
No, say when it comes to equal speed and the clairvoyance thing, the only the absolute most I'd say is just using the sharpness of the sword of the end to just kind of bulldoze through any defense that Archer sets up in the moment.
Does he use like protections? I thought, based on how it was described, it kind of sounded like he just like ultra instincted out of the way of everything.
He can kind of do both. One thing he has is Route Ice, which is a legendary shield used by Ajax that can block almost any projectile. If it's super strong, it can break it, but usually it's pretty strong. Also, while I was looking this up, this is just kind of a bonus thing for the Fate fans in the audience and in here. Apparently, he can project Lord Camelot.
Wait a minute, how the hell can he do that
what?
one?
Yeah, in one of the interludes, he says essentially that it would be hard, but he could theoretically project Lord Camelot, which is the walls of Camelot. It's like the ultimate defense kind of thing.
Yep, Noble Phantasm. That at one.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll bring up for the sake of that is that at one point Lord Camelot was used to block a blast that was designed for to begin erasing the timeline. Admittedly, it comes with the caveat of it can block the attack. The user still ironically is the least protected person with that.
Wait,
Yeah.
could you theoretically copy what's it called? The cannon that Master Relay uses? Since it is her noble phantasm in Crossbow.
Which cannon?
It's I forget the name of it. Black Barrel. The Black Barrel.
Oh, Black Barrel. I don't know. That one's kind of that's a whole other can of worms because I think that one was like kind of made by Chaldea.
It was, yeah. It was Da Vinci made it, but
Yeah. So
Yeah,
wasn't
maybe.
sure.
Black Barrel replica, admittedly, I don't think he could use it because it specifically uses like the command seals of the life force of the master for
No, that's true.
that stuff. It would be a very
So
funny
you
way to
got me there.
happen. It's just like
But-
sets up a cool kill. It just has the sound.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, forgot to load it.
Consul, and I use your entire existence against you. Goodbye.
Admittedly, I don't know how old it is, but I will admit that would probably work.
So I'm gonna ask a weird question, which I don't have to ask in most debates.
Uh-huh.
Does AP even matter here? Like, does how strong they are even matter? Because it kind of sounds like they have weapons to basically like ignore durability, and it mostly comes down to which of them would be able to. It sounds like whether Archer can get past Consul N's immortality versus N's ability to just like actually catch Archer. That kind of sounds like what the debate actually comes down to.
I think, funnily enough, for a person who did put into a lot of stuff with AP things, this cast does actually make me think that, yeah, this is more or less who gets the win con off with just for it all, because bulldozing isn't really going to work.
Because I'm trying to think, like, whether AP matters. Because if Consul N is way stronger or weaker than Archer, that almost doesn't matter, because it sounds like the sword just negates durability. But it might matter for Archer, because if Consul N's just way stronger, then even if the weapons could kill a ghost, that might not matter if the weapons aren't physically strong enough to actually damage. And
It just gives me the mental image. I'm about to say the mental image of like trying to use Rule Breaker and just and it's the issue of can't pierce any part of his body. So
I mean, it is rank C and has only the effectiveness of a dagger, so theoretically it doesn't sound like it's all that impressive. Unless he breaks it and gives every single weapon that same ability.
That is true. And there are ones that can ignore durability. That said, I will go over a little bit about AP just in the interest of
covering all our bases, where are these guys sitting at strength wise?
Yeah. So for Emiya, we can scale him to the Foreigner class servants who themselves scale to the Outer Gods.
Cthulhu?
Yes, actually.
All right then.
Let me see. In fact, you can look up Outer Gods. You can show that one.
Fun fact:
Yeah,
Cthulhu possesses the person's daughter who is responsible for the inappropriate use of tentacles.
Yeah,
Wait, is that canon?
Yep.
kind of.
All right then.
But yeah, so this is during the Salem arc. This is said by Lavinia, who is one of the characters from one of H.P. Lovecraft's stories. She's the one that gives birth to the twins who are sons of Yogg-Sothoth, I think. But basically, she describes about the outer gods, where they exist in the outer universe, which exists outside not only the entire Fate multiverse, it exists outside all possible dimensions, which, let me see here. I have another thing to kind of help reinforce this.
Aqua Lynn X in the chat is and reinforcing the scaling arguments by saying they were able to fight Hercules, Buddha, and BB. I can only assume that's BB Hood from Darkstalkers, which is very impressive.
No, it's the Black Blossom AI from Fate Extra CCC.
Yeah, she's the character where every time Fate gets stronger, they keep buffing her.
Oh,
She should
There's
be the
two
strongest.
characters that always get buffed in Fate. It's Ort and BB.
Yes. Yeah, BB is basically the Beerus of Fate in that she's always at 75%.
Oh no, okay, no, they actually explain why BB gets more powerful with half her stuff. It's just the mood of, I'd say it's Ort's the Beerus of Fate.
Yeah. But yeah, you can look up Kiara. Let's see, Kiara 2. So in CCC, Kiara, the evil demon Buddha nun, is capable of ascending to a higher dimensional tier, and it is stated here that no matter how high you transcend, you can keep going higher and higher, because when it comes to omnipotence, there's no actual limit. So in terms of how high the dimension scale in Fate, they can go infinitely, and with the whole Outer Gods going past all dimensions, that would get us into the Outerversal realm.
Who's saying this?
I don't know. This one hasn't been fully translated. This hasn't been officially translated yet. I'm going off of the
In the
scanlations.
weirdest comparison, this makes me think of SCP-3812. That's just what that story reminds me of. Any SCP fans in the chat, that's references for you. So anyway, yeah. So that's pretty good.
But yeah, the Outer Gods part is officially translated, so the part about transcending all dimensions is officially translated. It's just the CCC stuff kind of helps reinforce that it's infinite dimensions.
That's pretty strong. So Fate has infinite dimensions. Does Xenoblade
Yeah.
have infinite dimensions?
So the answer is...
That's always a good way to start an argument. Let me get
Listen, I
through
was
it.
so happy when it's like, okay, I think we can sidestep AP, because, like, I did my homework for this, trying to go on through, and it's like, but we can sidestep it. I'm like, okay, we don't have to go on through for this chain. Let's talk about it anyway. Oh.
Sorry.
Okay, so the exact approximations of the Xenoblade cosmology, it can at this point only be guesswork, because a lot of it involves its connections to Xenogears and Xenosaga. Along, I'd say, Xenoblade X used to be questionable, but then the definitive edition proved otherwise. But I'd say that it's like there is a connection. So the conduit is the power source that that is responsible for all the funky god shit that happens on through.
Yeah.
So there was a way to go on through here. I think those who remember Baigen vs. Dunban would remember the memory space.
Yeah.
That's a place that, like, Zanza goes to when he's like, I don't like this universe, let's reboot it. And then fights up with that. Eventually, though, so funny thing, Zanza's actually two people.
He's two guys.
Yes, he got split in half between the Xenoblade 1 world and the Xenoblade 2 world. But a Xenoblade 2 guy, about a version of him, is actually a reasonable chap.
That's good.
Yes, and he had and the thing with him is that he fits more in like it is indicated that he is like a highest standard of like god thing compared for it all. For example, like Zanza can be physically interacted and dealt with. The one guy who tried to kill like him in the Xenoblade 2 world, was physically incapable of doing it. Like, you just gotta pass it through it. It's like, you are way too low on that standard to go on through for me. And he describes like how he worked with the power of the conduit to make stuff on through. and he describes though how it goes from a far-flung about a dimension onto. And can you bring up architect about a statement? I believe is what I called it. Can't wait to see how I messed up this one.
I believe in you.
Believe in the fact that I mess up, or the fact that I said it correctly.
I believe that we can get through this if we work together.
Okay, the architect dimension talk.
Yeah, it was under T because it was the architect.
That makes sense.
Man, you
So,
got
yeah,
Obi-Toad.
Yeah, like I said, he is a half a Xander.
Mm.
But yes, he brings up about the fact though that the power of the conduit, that is the power that like Alvis, about a Pyra and Mithra all utilize, comes from a higher dimension, and him in his enlightened state of mind describes, so where's that power come from? A faraway dimension, and this is how much I know about it.
Mm.
Which does indicate that it does come from a higher place. Or at the very least, a very different place.
Okay.
And then that could also be got on through with how Xenogears and about to say Xenosaga goes on through. The main punchline is, I think you can about to say on the thing, I'll admit, no, you can't get to outer Xenoblade reasonably.
Oh no. Then what was the point of telling Joey what outer Xenoblade is if no one we talk about today is gonna be outer Versal?
It's okay, I hardly understood it anyways.
Okay.
Oh well. Listen.
Alright, so we're dealing
But
with
yeah.
potentially higher dimensional Xenoblade.
Yeah, it is like about that. I do think you could probably argue like 5th or 6th dimensional for like stuff that uses the conduit. N was the one guy sent to assassinate Alvis, who is the strongest user of the conduit's power.
Wait, actually, question back to the fate scaling, because I was just comparing them in my head. We know an omnipotent person in Fate can, like, transcend infinite dimensions, but, like, who scales to the omnipotent characters in Fate?
That would probably be in terms of the scaling for the Outer Gods, would be the Foreigner class servants, who are all basically just servants who are associated with or are possessed more or less by said Lovecraftian deities.
So I will note that they have possessed goes that do. They are absolutely not like using the full power of the Outer Gods. Like, because I do remember like Salem, which is where we get the first Foreigner. The whole thing is we gotta stop her from fully manifesting because otherwise reality goes out to lunch and this is the end of the world as we know it.
True, but BB in the summer event does connect to an Outer God, and that's when we get Mysterious Heroine XX, who is one of the many alternate versions of Arturia, whose whole job is just slaying and sealing Outer Gods.
So this is where we get the funniest pedantic thing, because there is a part of BB that I've learned about and I've hated learning about, which is the fact of she might have just lied about meeting an Outer God.
I mean, but Heroine XX still fights something and seals it, so...
But does
even then, she just
Archer
literally her
Emiya scale
job.
to this alternate version of Saber that sounds stronger than anyone else?
No.
They should. They get summoned by the same organization.
That does not mean anything. In Chaldea, there are very clear power gaps.
I really have no idea what those two.
And I sure do love saying that Matahari should be comparable to Arjuna Alta.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so for perspective, Matahari has the power of seduction. Arjuna Alta has the power of blowing up a universe and remaking it at will.
So, let's say we can't scale Archer Emiya to the Outer Gods. What's their next best scaling?
We'd probably have stuff with there's the CCC, the triple C scaling of BB piercing through a. This has gone over.
Wait, isn't BB also stronger than Archer Emiya?
BB we do explicitly fight in CCC, so that was.
BB's only using 75% of their power at all times, or something like that.
Exactly. Exactly. It's like how we can't scale Goku to full power Beerus.
Is Archer Emiya a fraud?
I mean, kind of, but also that kind of makes him.
All these really strong characters are strong,
and
but
he's a
what's...
fraud who is a fraud, which makes him an anti-fraud.
So what's
Okay, you know what? Never mind. Let's continue the AP discussion.
so
table.
if
I
they
think
can't
help me
scale
out.
to the outer gods and they can't scale to BB Hood from Darkstalkers, then what?
But no, the BB
what's
scaling is, I would say, is pretty explicit because in that one, we do fight BB, and she's able to pierce through from what's been calced, a 12-dimensional space.
is Archer as strong as BB?
Yeah, he can fight and
Yeah.
defeat her.
He kind of gets a buff from other stuff, but and BB also can't really handle the full, all the stuff with the moon cell.
So we have some questions in chat. One is, can Emiya Archer compare to Sakura Matuk Ali?
To Kali. Theoretically, yes, in the sense of like you can summon any servant against most of the boss enemies. It's kind of just the case of in terms of the gameplay. You can summon pretty much any servant and have them beat up anybody. You could have Kali be beat up by Billy the Kid and his gun, his regular gun.
So what does Kali do that's notable?
Well, she's Kali. She's from she's one of the main deities in Indian mythology.
So I would note that even in the story where you fight, where like Kali's an antagonist that you fight on through, you don't beat her by overpowering her. It's more like, it's more like the fact that you kind of that it's like she kind of gets pseudo mind controlled and pacified.
So what? I'm scaling to Indian mythology is cool, but what does that like mean for their like power level?
Well, divine spirits are usually considered some of the top tiers of fate. They would be some of the ones who would also kind of be a little easier to consider scaling to those high ends.
Would Kali
I guess we could
scale
also
to
just
BB?
scale.
Yeah, they haven't interacted enough
Maybe?
to.
They haven't interacted. Yeah, they haven't really.
Actually, wait a
Kali
minute.
kind of has one chapter where they're relevant. Is the
Actually-
issue?
Actually, no, wait a minute. Absolutely not, because BB messes with Kali's Saint Draft when making the Sakura 5.
Okay.
So BB is stronger than Kali.
Most likely, yes.
So then he
And-
would scale to Kali because he scales to BB.
Okay, but he also needs like the moon cell extra stuff that doesn't come standard with regular Archer.
But we said we're bringing in extra stuff early on.
Well, I'm letting extra stuff as in. So funny thing.
He changed
Archer
his
is
mind.
Archer is a secret boss in Fate Extra. The Archer that we know, compared to the other Archer that's the player character in Fate Extra.
So you're saying that Stay Night Archer is equal to Extra Archer.
Admittedly, I'll have to find out the specific time zone of when that fight can happen, but if it's before
That just
the-
means Archer scales to Archer.
Of course.
That makes
guess-
sense to me.
There, we got our power scaling.
All
Archer
right.
scales to Archer. We did it, guys. It only took us an hour 45.
All right. The next question is, can't Emiya scale to Altera in Extala, who is the White Titan?
Because the thing with that is, I'm pretty sure the only one who fights the White Titan is Nero, who is Nero and can just do whatever the fuck she wants.
Oh yeah, doesn't she get the Venus form in that?
Yeah. If BB is the Beerus, then Nero is the Homelander, and that they can do whatever the fuck they want.
Oh.
But
Well, if
I
Archer is
will
only
say-
as strong as Homelander, then I don't like his chances.
Exactly. I appreciate how this. is
I'll
going
correct that. Nero is the Homander of Fate.
Oh.
Yeah, Homander, the strongest one.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, you can also even then you can just get him to scaling to like Nero, which Nero is kind of insane, but Nero's also just kind of weird in her powers. But I would say that you can scale Emiya to most of the big relevant stuff in FGO, which includes stuff like Galatia, who is the guy who is going to nuke all of time and history at once, or to Ort, who is Ort.
Hmm.
I don't. Okay,
I know
you
why
can't-
Ort is cool.
Okay, so I'll summarize this with Ort. Is that Ort's the guy who's explicitly described as the most powerful character in the entire Fate series?
Yeah.
When we fight him in Fate Grand Order, we are given the handicap of he had his heart ripped out and it's being used as a sun.
The reason I'm just like getting sticking points is that I'm hearing all these super powerful characters described, but there's also like the stipulation of they can transcend past the power of everyone else, or they're only ever using 70% of their power, or they're just the strongest character in Fate. And then they do these really cool feats, and it's like, well, that's cool, but why does Archer scale to it? But I guess like there's just got to be something that's like
Because
via
Archer is
some.
cool.
There's just like some scaling somewhere, I guess.
Yeah. I'd say out of everything, Goetia is probably the easiest one.
All
But
right.
he's still got the time transcendence doohickeys. But yeah, BB gets you to the 12D stuff. Oberon also has the dimensional stuff since he was going to devour the entire planet and would have also devoured that universe's version of Avalon, which is 6D. So essentially, we can get Emiya into hyperversal stuff in Grand Order and CCC if we don't want to go all the way into the Outer Versal, Outer God stuff.
Do we want to move on to final arguments?
I think so.
No, I want to
Hard-
continue
okay.
to see if we can far check Emiya harder with this. But no, I'm willing to go off through with.
I think if we keep digging, we're gonna eventually find something for Archer Emiya.
If we keep digging, we'll turn out that both of these
I'll
characters.
just fraud check N at that point.
Okay, then what you gonna fraud check me with?
N is a dirty lying thief. He stole his name from the best Pokemon husbando. So
Okay,
We
Ooh.
should have
That-
just done Consul N versus N from Pokemon. That would have been the best death battle cast.
God, somehow devolves into creation trio scale.
exactly.
It always does. All right, I'm gonna throw the poll up. I'm gonna say, I am the table. You go first. What's your final argument for Archer Emiya winning?
Ultimately, I think Emiya just has everything that he needs. He has multiple ways of getting past N's immortality and regen with it. I mean, he has essentially he has at least 3 different swords. If we want to say that he can project the sword to the end, he has 3 or 4 different swords that can get the job done, and he only needs to use really one of them to give every one of his swords all of those abilities. So essentially, he has multiple ways of just overwhelming N with just weapons that can ignore his durability and ignore his regen. And again, even it does seem like his high-end scale higher than Council ends. So admittedly, we did talk about how AP isn't necessarily the all-in thing of this debate, but I think he's strong enough that it helps kind of mean that N has fewer options of putting him down. So yeah, all in all, I think Emiya just has the correct tools that he needs to win while also having the bonus of having better stats at the high ends.
Question for Joey.
Yes.
When we say AP, do you know what we're saying?
I'm assuming attack power.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Because I just realized we've been saying that for the past 15 minutes.
Oh wait,
Riddles.
Did
I
I
managed
did I
to
just
put
close
two and
the?
two together.
I might have closed the voting thing by accident.
Do you have access to the voting thing?
I think I do.
Brother.
'Cause I had the thing before, and I was just trying to get it out of the way of the chat.
Are
and I was
you
like, wait a
trying
minute, did I
to
just close
cheat
it?
while your character is
No.
ahead?
No, I didn't think it would do that.
That's an automatic vote for Consul N if you're trying to rig the vote.
No, that was an accident. I'm sorry. I completely forgot I had access to that.
I'll fact check
yeah.
this poll. If it's closed, then that's a vote for our Consul N right there.
Fuck. Did I just screw myself?
Alright, in the
Should I screw myself
meantime,
by accident?
Riddles, you may give your explanation for why you think Consul N wins.
I just think that Consul N is not. That's comparing the win cons goes on through. It is just Emiya does need to jump through a bunch of hoops on through. And while that's Eye of the Mind and Clairvoyance can help out to an extend for it all, I think it's just a matter of time. Before N bum rushes, because I know it has brought up, but I do think the Sword of the End can probably cut through his noble phantasms. The only thing I think that can easily block it is Lord Caldeat, Camelot, and as he noted, not easy. So I think it's just a matter of time before N closes the distance and strikes that one hit that he needs to win.
Okay. So I will say the poll is still up, but it seems more people have voted. It started with Archer taking the lead, but it seems like Consul N has pulled ahead because the chat doesn't like cheaters. So
Oh God,
all right.
I wasn't cheating. I just
I
wanted
wasn't-
to read the chat, and I was
Should've
like,
just
hey, I
not
can't vote in
cheated,
this.
dude. You're letting us down.
I can't believe that you didn't feel that confident in the character you're representing, that you had to resort to such underhand tactics, Fable.
No faith in Archer Emiya today. All right. I'll Joey, do you want to give your verdict first, or do you want me to give it first?
You know, why don't you give your verdict first?
So I'm thinking about who's winning. We got speed being the same, and I feel like this is kind of relatively straightforward. Like, it seems like Archer has ways to get around Consul N's regeneration. I think that I don't think Consul N, even with the highest ends of Xenoblade, is going to be too durable to be damaged. I think Archer... I'm not sure how high he scales in this verse cosmology. Some of the scaling seems suspect. But I think no matter what, it's going to be high enough to at least do some amount of damage to Consul N, which I think is all he needs to do. And I think, like, with his dodge ability, if there's a 1% chance he'll get the win, then he gets the win. And I think there's that 1% chance, so I think Archer Emiya is going to win. That's so I vote for Archer Emiya.
All right. As for me, it's kind of hard for me to put it all together, right? Like, I'm catching that they have roughly equivalent speed and power and whatnot, but I keep thinking back to Consul N's ability to just come back, essentially, as long as their soul remains, right?
Yeah.
So, to me, it's less about how they compare together, but how long Emiya could last until they figure out how to kill Consul N, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm like really torn, but I think just because the discussion has led to ways where Archer can beat Consul N, that I want to lean that way. Does what I said make sense?
Yeah. So you're voting for Archer?
Yeah, so I think that's where my vote's. My vote's gonna go towards Archer, like just barely.
Alright. And I'm going to end the poll. And Consul N pulled ahead in the poll a little bit, but Archer Emiya eventually came back and got the poll with 57%. So this is a sweep for Archer Emiya. I don't think it's like completely undebatable, but it seems like Archer just has everything they need to win.
Man, I can't believe you guys with all your stuff about to disrespect the person who did the research. I'll have you know that I absolutely agree. Archer Batze probably wins this.
Good to know. Good to know.
Good to know. And can I just say, that last minute of just realizing, oh shit, did I just screw myself with that mistake?
Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory.
If you accidentally exit out, it's just like, well, you see, the audience votes invalidated. Shub votes for N out of honor, and then
That would have been like, that would have been.
We were able to salvage the sanctity of the fan battle cast this day.
yeah, nope.
All right.
And
So,
hey, I avenged fate from my last cast, so you know.
So
Listen,
we've talked about Archer versus Consul N for a bit about like the dynamic and the cool stuff Archer can do. I guess the last question is Riddles. Why do you want this matchup? What's so cool about it?
So it's a mood of like when thinking about on through, and I like the theming of like these like versions of the heroes who just have their ideals utterly broken. I've definitely skimmed over because I want to talk about verses, but what broke in is that. So I brought up, it's like, oh, go kill God. What I didn't say was that God was possessing, like, In's great-granddaughter at that time. And she was being protected by his son. And during the kerfuffle of, please, I'm not trying to actually like destroy the city. I'm just trying to stop God from destroying the universe. He accidentally kills his son.
How do you accidentally kill your son?
It's the mood of trying to kill the God possessing possessing him, possessing the family member, and then his son jumps in the way.
Oh. Man,
Yeah,
a
it's
fast
like
son.
going. Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Okay.
But yeah, and that's just kind of it's like he wanted to give his like he basically destroyed what he thought was like his future for his family, and then he just became a self-loathing bastard. Not helping by the fact though of his wife was resurrected in front of the flaming ruins of the town that they founded.
So wait, what's Archer's or not Archer? What's a end's goal once they've accidentally killed their family?
So after a while, he continues trying to kill Alvis, the god, basically. And then after a while, he stews in his self-loathing for a long, long time. And when eventually it's like he finds another version of himself that reincarnated onto, he's like, man, it's like, I didn't make the wrong choice. I wasn't the fuck up. I'm going to prove this by making this version of me suffer like high holy hell.
I don't know how that's going to accomplish anything.
It's just trying to validate what it's just trying to say my life wasn't a mistake. My choice to joining up with Zed wasn't a mistake.
Wait, why is he going after Prime Noah?
Because he's a spy. Like I said, it's self-validation basically. Like my life could.
Why is he even mad at the other version of himself?
Because he hates himself and he's projecting it on another version of himself.
Wait, he's justifying that he doesn't. So he thinks he's in the right. He's justifying himself so that he doesn't hate himself. But then he's also gonna kill himself because he knows it, but he's directing the energy at another version of himself.
Yeah.
I think I'm misrepresenting the story.
I mean, it is the mood of a guy who fucks up and is trying to justify it by saying, no, I'm not the biggest fuck up that could happen. This guy's the biggest fuck up that could happen. And then when trying to fuck that guy up, he makes his own life worse.
Yeah.
So he wants to
In a
kill
way, you could
Prime
also say
Saul
it's
to
that,
kind of prove that he's better than Prime. Well, not Saul, Noah. He wants to kill Prime Noah to prove that he's better than Prime Noah.
Yeah, basically, like break his will, make him suffer, and then it's like, hey, at least I now know I am not the Noah that fucked up the most.
Yeah, you can also say that it's a case of remembering his young self being cringe and wanting to kill him for it, which I feel like lots of people can relate to.
Is that Archer's character arc? He wants to kill his past self because he was cringe?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you do the same thing?
Yeah, it's brought up that it's like it is brought up at one point that it's like I'm gonna use this time paradox to save myself from this, and it is brought up that it's like there's a chance this won't work, and he's like, don't care. Partially because he thinks it's better for the world if this dipshit doesn't get that is his younger self doesn't end up going down the same path he's doing anyway.
So before the cast, you kind of described it like an Anakin versus Darth Vader dynamic. Which is which in this scenario?
So when I said Anakin versus Darth Vader, I meant like in Archer versus their present selves. For this one, I would say though that it's like Archer is definitely the overall good guy.
Okay.
Yeah, it is like because in his bad day at his worst is just an evil bastard. Like eventually he gets it through his head, but he does spend most of the story as a prick. Archer at his worst is only directed towards himself. He typically tries to do at worst the decent thing, and there's also a bunch of extra story stuff where he is just an out and out good guy.
So what makes this matchup special that you're like, this is the one that I gotta pitch to the Death Battle team? This is the one.
I'm a person who loves Fate. I love Xenoblade. I wanted to see both these franchises go up on a thing, and I thought though that it's an interesting theme to having like these fallen heroes who aren't just counterparts to the main hero, but are just the hero from like a past or future.
Interesting.
And I think that it's like I did like the that I brought up during like my pitch of them, but it's like I want a mood that's kind of similar to like Guts and Dimitri and Obito versus Vader. Except the mood is if they realize how much they are like each other, they just get more annoyed.
Okay. Okay. I'm interested. I think this is a very interesting matchup.
You know, but I'm so sad if I just accidentally went on with different details on through. This is inherently with these characters, they are complicated.
Yeah, Xenoblade and Fate are notoriously a little we'll call it nuanced when we get to like their strongest characters.
Yeah, it's a, you know, it's like if I'd say this is getting a official cast at some point with it all, and I'm kind of curious to see how that goes on through since Xenoblade I don't think's been about to say represented outside of the bloody Tournament of Champions.
Oh yeah, right. This is an official cast.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
Let's hope it's not one of those like 10-minute segments where they talk about one character and then bring up the other character for like 30 seconds.
yeah. No, I brought that up though when we were talking about like with the kick of the week thing for it all, which is just like about they struggled to. Well, like even back in like when it was only pitches that were going over like half a cast for it all, which is yeah, one character's being talked about a decent bit. What about the other one? Yeah.
I
And
think
it's like
Gonzo versus Papyrus was like the worst because they bring up like that is a conversation for another time. The kick of the week being controversial is not a hot take.
Yeah.
yeah, no, but it's just I like this mood of these variations of that say Fallen Heroes goes on through. I think that if you combine Fate and Xenoblade music, you will get something very pretty.
Yeah.
And like you know, it's a thing of like, yeah, N doesn't have much arsenal wise, but I kind of like the beauty of he has a single, very blatantly overpowered weapon compared to Arch's pocket dimension of infinite bullshit.
I'm kind of reminded of Strider Hiryu versus Ryu Hayabusa when like he just kept cutting through all of Ryu's weaponry with his like laser sword.
Yeah, no, and it's like I gave shit to Table for like the things that he brought up, but those are like, well, with the exception of Medusa's weapon, it's like like Rule Breaker and copying N's own sword. Well, like I think those might be the win cons. Admittedly, actually doing research a bit more, I'd say I'm a bit less certain with it, but I do think that it's like if you are going to give Archer a win, it would be those two weapons.
Yeah. Admittedly, harp is actually something that, from what I read, he could do. This is one of those like interviews with like the creators kind of things where they were just going over, oh, what would it be like if Archer fought all the servants? And he said, yeah, his best chance would be UBW, and hope he can last long enough to project harp to kill her, to kill Ryder.
No Lava in the cast is asking if Papyrus versus Gonzo is infamous. No, I was specifically referring to when the Death Battle cast talked about it, because that was the picture intended for that to be like a cast, and then they only talked about it for like 10 minutes. So that's why I'm referring to like the Death Battle cast. The matchup itself seems really fun. So I guess one last question I had is now that the debate's over and you did like a lot of thinking and research on this, like, do you think that Archer would be able to recreate the sword, or do you think it wouldn't work?
I think he'd be able to do it. It'll probably be very low quality in comparison. Like I brought up in universe, sometimes it's like, so what happens if like Shiro/Archer traces a divine weapon, and it's like sometimes they say he can't do it, sometimes he can do it, and I think the most consistent is that compared to like a regular weapon drops 1 rank, a divine weapon drops 2 ranks.
I did also see that he does project Excalibur in CCC because of the Moon Cell shenanigans, making it easier, so...
That is the funniest thing, because I still remember for that, which is, they made the animation, but they didn't go to Nasu for it first, and when Nasu saw it, it's like, this isn't supposed to be how it works.
Yeah.
But I feel mean if I said, fuck you, you're not allowed this, we're canceling this animation. So he just said, it's easier to do it in the Moon Cell, trust.
Yeah. Yeah, from what I looked into, and again, this is from just me not having played any of the Xenoblade stuff, and also this is also just going off of the Wikia. So, yeah, from what I read, the Sword of the End was created by Melia or her soul or something, and from what I've read, she's not a god, so I would assume it would work then. But
Akira Yamaguchi, the Kitsune, is asking if there's any miraculous matchups for Fan Battlecast. We do know of Ladybug versus Skitter from Worm is actually a matchup that was pitched. So that is
really?
eventually a cast we will be doing at some point.
Shit, I'd be down to be on that one. I loved Worm when I read through it.
Yeah, it seems like an interesting matchup. Is there anything we want to cover about the matchup before we call it a cast?
I guess I can just try to say my quote-unquote simple way to pitch on through.
All right, what's your pitch?
It is just the simple thing of, so basically it is just two, our heroes from these tales, after death becoming agents of the will of humanity, forced to betray everything that they once stood for, and in a chance encounter with their past self, all that they feel is self-loathing.
Well, that's sad.
Yeah, these are very sad characters once you get down to it.
Yeah.
Alright.
So that's two Fate matchups in a row where it's just we hate life and ourselves.
Don't worry, I think Iskandar is going to be the next Fate matchup that gets put on cast.
Okay, well, that's a good one then.
It's Iskandar. Funny way to spell Alexander the Great.
Well, what's their matchup?
Wemu from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
I forgot about that one.
I think it's funny because it's like
I'm
there were like
sorry.
3 guys who were like, I will represent Ramu. Meanwhile, I'm just quietly here going, and I'm gonna represent Iskandar. And it's like at some point I'll just have to get those 3, and it's like fight each other with knives to see who gets to rep them.
I mean, we were just
I would
talking about
rather
like
see Wembley versus Iskander.
we were just talking about like universal power, so I'm not sure what Wamu's gonna do, but who knows? We'll have to check in when we get there.
Shanti, you need to understand, JoJo's been out for like 5 years.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
You need to understand, the only reason why Gerono lost is because Liam hates JoJo.
Oh, right. Alright. So with all that, thanks everyone for watching. This has been a great cast, and we hope you were able to sell you on the matchup a little bit. Seems like a fun one.
Hopefully.
We will see